I want to speak to you today about the sermon's introduction. In reality, there is no part of your sermon more important than the introduction. Yet the introduction should always be one of the last things we prepare. When we started these discussions together, I raised to you this question of what's the matter with preaching today? And I presented you with this argument from Harry Emerson Fosdick that the great problem with preaching is that it doesn't speak to people's needs. While it is true that preaching should address people's needs, it's also true that the reality of preaching is that while it should address people's needs, it should first and foremost be rooted in what God has said. Because God has spoken, and because when God spoke, He spoke in the Bible addressing specific situations and addressing specific instances through the authors of the Scripture, they were speaking to real human needs. And so in the introduction, we are raising the need for what our sermon's going to be about. That is the core of what an introduction does. It raises the need. It's convincing the people you're speaking to, it's making a case to them that they should listen to you. That's what you're doing in the introduction. Jerry Vines in our textbook writes, nothing is more important in sermon delivery than the introduction. Danny Akin says the same. It's the most important part of the sermon. So how do you go about creating a great sermon introduction? First, keep in mind that you're wanting to do something that will get people's attention. You're wanting to get the audience's attention. So how do we do this? How do we capture the audience's attention and interest? Think about every listener's unspoken question. Why should I listen to this message? You've got a main idea. You've got a sermon idea. Why should people care? That's what you're setting up here. So raise the need, raise an appropriate need for what your sermon introduction is about. When you come to the sermon introduction, keep in mind just a few rules of thumb. First, you want it to be of high interaction value. There's lots of ways you can do this, but you want it to capture people's attention. Keep it short, usually 3 to 5 minutes at most, sometimes even shorter. The purpose of the sermon introduction is to set up the main idea of your sermon. It's to set up, it leads into what the sermon is going to be about. So you're raising the need for what your sermon is about. How can you do this? Lots of different ways to do it. You want to become a student of human needs, of human issues, so that you know how your text interacts with the real world. Statistics can help you do this. Historical illustrations can help you do this. Humor can help you do this. Current events can help you do this. Real-life stories, biographical illustrations. There's a whole list. Your textbooks have several. As you come to the introduction, keep in mind also some things you don't want to do. You don't want to apologize. Don't say, oh, I was tired last night and I didn't finish preparing my sermon. Don't ever apologize, because when you apologize, what you're doing in the introduction is you're telling people, you don't really need to listen to me. Don't waste time in the introduction. Don't meander around. Have it scripted. Know exactly what you want to say and say it. Even think about trying to memorize it if you can. All of this will help you as you prepare the introduction. How should you prepare it? As I've already said, write it out towards the end of the sermon preparation process. Based on what the main idea of your sermon is, write out this introduction. Script it word for word. Memorize it. Then ask yourself this question once you're done with your introduction. Would this introduction get my attention? The attention of my wife? Would it get my children's attention? Would they want to listen to me? If the answer is no, then rewrite your introduction. Keep working on it. Keep polishing it off until it's ready.